Hello, welcome, y'alls. Welcome to another day of live narration. So, we're getting back into the Labours of Hercules, an astrological interpretation, and it's by Alice A. Bailey. So, we went through the first two labors yesterday, and I'm starting into the third labor today. All right, off we go. Labor 3. Gathering the golden apples of the Hesperides. Okay. Gathering the golden apples of the Hesperides, Part 1. Gemini, May 21st to June 20th. The myth. The great presiding one, within the council chamber of the Lord, had watched the labors of the Son of Man, who is a son of God. He and the teacher saw the third great gate opening before the Son of Man, revealing a new chance to tread the way. They noted how the laborer arose and prepared to enter on his task. Send out word to guard the sacred tree. Let Hercules unfold the power to search without discouragement, deception, or too great a speed. Let perseverance now be called upon. He has done well so far. And thus the word went forth. Oh, that's powerful. Hey, Saturnian! Yay! I miss you. Welcome. Hey, cool gamer. Welcome too. Dude. And thus the word went forth. Boom, right? Such power in words. Okay. Far in a distant country grew the sacred tree, the tree of wisdom, and on it grew the golden apples of the Hesperides. Mother of pearls. Hesperides. The fame of these sweet fruits had gone to distant lands, and all the sons of men who knew themselves to be likewise the sons of God desired them. Hercules too knew of these fruits, and when the word went forth to seek for them, he sought the teacher, asking him the way to go and find the sacred tree and pick the apples. Tell me the way, O teacher of my soul. I seek the apples, and I need them quickly for my use. Show me the quickest way, and I will go. Not so, my son, replied the teacher. The way is long. 2 things alone I will confide in you, and then it is for you to prove the truth of what I say. Remember that the sacred tree is guarded well. 3 maidens fair cherish the tree, protecting well its fruit. A dragon with 100 heads protects the maidens and the tree. Guard thyself well from strength too great for thee, from wiles too subtle for thy comprehension. Watch well. The second thing that I would say to thee is that thy search will carry thee where 5 great tests will meet thee on the way. Each will afford thee scope for wisdom, understanding, skill, and opportunity. Watch well. I fear, my son, that you will fail to recognize these points upon the way, but time alone will show. Godspeed thee in thy search. With confidence, because success nor failure held for him a claim, Hercules went forth upon the way, sure of himself, his wisdom, and his strength. Through the third gate he passed, going due north. Throughout the land he passed, seeking the sacred tree, but found it not. All men he met he questioned, but none could guide him on his way. None knew the place. Time passed, yet still he sought, wandering from place to place and returning oft upon his steps to the third gate, sad and discouraged. Still he sought on every hand. The teacher, watching from afar, sent Nereus to see if he could aid. Time and again he came, in varying form and with differing words of truth, but Hercules responded not, nor knew him for the messenger he was. Skilled though he was in speech, and wise with the deep wisdom of a son of God, Nereus failed, for Hercules was blind. He did not recognize the help so subtly proffered. Returned at length with sadness to the teacher, Nereus spoke of failure. The first 5 of the lesser tests is passed, replied the teacher, and failure marks this stage. Let Hercules proceed. Finding no sacred tree upon the northern way, Hercules turned towards the south, and in the place of darkness continued with his search. At first he dreamed of quick success, but Antaeus, the serpent, met him on that way and wrestled with him, overcoming him at every point. He guards the tree, said Hercules. This I was told, so near him must be the tree. I must break down his guard and, thus destroying him, break down and pluck the fruit. Yet, wrestling with much strength, he conquered not. Where lies my fruit? Said Hercules. Why can Antaeus conquer me? E'en when an infant I destroyed a serpent in my cot. With my own hands I strangled it. Why fail I now? Wrestling again with all his might, he grasped the serpent with both hands, lifting it high in the air, away from off the ground. And lo, the deed was done. Antaeus, vanquished, spoke, I come again in different guise at the 8th gate. Prepare again to wrestle. The teacher, gazing from afar, saw all that happened, and to the great presiding one who sits within the council chamber of the Lord he spoke, reporting on the deed. The second test is passed. The danger is surmounted. Success at this point marks his way. And the great presiding one replied, Let him proceed. Happy and confident, Hercules went on, sure of himself, and with new courage for the search. Now to the west he turned himself, and turning thus, he met disaster. He entered without thought upon the third great test, and failure met him, and for long delayed his steps. For there he met Busiris, the great arch deceiver, son of the waters, of close kin to Poseidon. Okay, I'm going to say that again. For there he met Perseus, the great arch deceiver, son of the waters, of close kin to Poseidon. He is the work to bring delusion to the sons of men through words of seeming wisdom. He claims to know the truth, and with quickness they believe. He speaks fair words, saying, I am the teacher. To me is given knowledge of the truth and sacrifice for me. Accept the way of life through me. I know, but no one else. My truth is right. All other truth is wrong and false. Hark to my words. Stay with me and be saved. And Hercules obeyed, and daily weakened on the early way, the third test, seeking no further for the sacred tree. His strength was sapped. He loved, adored Busiris, and accepted all he said. Weaker from day to day he grew, until there came a day when his loved teacher bound him to an altar and kept him bound throughout a year. Suddenly, one day, when struggling to be free, and slowly seeing Busiris for what he was, words spoken long ago by Nereus came to his mind. Truth lies within yourself. There is a higher power and strength and wisdom in yourself. Turn inwards, and there evoke the strength which is, the power which is the heritage of all the sons of men who are the sons of God. Silent he lay a prisoner on the altar, bound to its corners for 1 whole year. Then, with the strength, which is the strength of all the sons of God, he broke his bonds, seized the false teacher, who had seemed so wise, and bound him to the altar in his place. He spoke no word, but left him there to learn. The watching teacher, from afar, noted the moment of release, and turning to Nereus said, The third great test is passed. You taught him how to meet it, and in due time he profited. Let him go forward on the way and learn the secret of success. Wow. Dang, right? Okay. Chastened, yet Full of questioning relief, Hercules continued with his search and wandered far. The year spent prone upon the altar had taught him much. He went with greater wisdom on his way. Suddenly he halted in his steps. A cry of deep distress smote on his ear. Some vultures circling o'er a distant rock caught his attention. Then again the cry broke forth. Should he proceed upon his way, or should he seek the one who seemed in need and thus retard his steps? He pondered on the problem of delay. A year had now been lost. He felt the need for haste. Again a cry broke forth, and Hercules, with rapid steps, sped to his brother's help. He found Prometheus chained upon a rock, suffering dire agonies of pain caused by the vultures plucking at his liver, thus slowly killing him. He broke the binding chain and freed Prometheus, chasing the vultures to their distant lair, and tending the sick man until he had recovered from his wounds. Then, with much loss of time, he again started to make his way. The teacher, watching from afar, spoke to his seeking pupil these clear words, the first words spoken to him since he entered on his search. The fourth stage on the way unto the sacred tree is past. There has been no delay. The rule upon the chosen path which hastens all success is learn to serve. Ah! The presiding one within the council chamber of the Lord remarked, "He has done well. Continue with the tests." Dang, all right, stuff's starting to happen in my heart. Upon all ways the search went on, and north and south and east and west the sacred tree was sought, but was not found. There came a day when, worn with fear and traveling, he heard a rumor from a passing pilgrim on the way that, near a distant mountain, the tree was to be found, the first true statement given him as yet. Therefore he turned his feet to the high mountains of the east, and, on a bright and sunny day, he saw the object of his search, and hastened then his steps. Now I shall touch the sacred tree, or now I shall touch the sacred tree, he shouted in his joy. Surmount the guarding dragon. See the fair maidens of wide fame, and pluck the apples. Voices. Okay. But again, he was arrested by a sense of deep distress. Atlas confronted him, staggering 'neath the loads of worlds upon his back. His face was lined with suffering. His limbs were bowed with pain. Bowed? His limbs were bowed with pain. His eyes were closed with agony. He asked no help. He saw not Hercules, but stood bowed down with pain, with the weight of worlds. Hercules, trembling, watched and gauged the measure of the load and pain. He forgot about his search. The sacred tree and apples faded from mind. He only sought to aid the giant, and that without delay. Forward he rushed and eagerly removed the load, lifting it off the shoulders of his brother onto his own back, shouldering the burden of the worlds himself. He closed his eyes, bracing himself with effort, and lo, the load rolled off, and he stood free, and likewise Atlas. Before him stood the giant, and in his hand he held the golden apples, offering them with love to Hercules. The search was o'er. The sisters three held still more golden apples, and pressed them likewise into his hands. And Aegle, that fair maiden who is the glory of the setting sun, said unto him, placing an apple in his hand, "The way to us is always marked by service. Deeds of love are signposts on the way." Then Erythea, who keeps the gate, which all must pass before they stand alone before the great presiding one, gave him an apple, and upon its side, inscribed in light, was writ the golden word of service. Remember this, she said, forget it not. And lastly, Hesperus came, the wonder of the evening star, and said to him with clarity and love, go forth and serve, and tread the way, from henceforth, and for all the world's servers. Then I give back these apples for those who follow on, said Hercules, and returned from whence he came. Before the teacher, then he stood and rendered due account of all that had transpired. To him the teacher gave the word of cheer, and then with pointing finger indicated the fourth gate, and said to him, pass through that gate, capture the dough, and enter once again the holy place, the Tibetan. Dang, right? Wow, it's like, I'm so glad there's some analysis that's coming now too, just because there was so much in that, right? All right, the nature of the test. We come now to the third labor in the sign Gemini, concerning predominantly the active work of the aspirant on the physical plane as he comes to an understanding of himself. Before this active work becomes possible, there must be a cycle of interior thought and mystical longing, the striving after the vision, and a subjective process carried on, perhaps for a very long time, before the man on the physical plane really begins the labor of unifying soul and body. This is the theme of this labor. It is in this physical plane achievement and in the work of gaining the golden apples of wisdom that the real test of the sincerity of the aspirant takes place. A longing to be good, a deep desire to ascertain the facts of the spiritual life, spasmodic efforts at self-discipline, at prayer and meditation precede, almost inevitably, this real and steady effort. Dude. A visionary must become a man of action. Desire has to be carried forward into the world of completion, and herein lies the test in Gemini. The physical plane is the place where experience is gained and where the causes, initiated in the world of mental effort, must manifest and achieve objectivity. It is the place also where the mechanism of contact is developed, where little by little, the five senses open up to the human being new fields of awareness and present to him fresh spheres for conquest and achievement. It is the place, therefore, where knowledge is gained, and where that knowledge must be transmuted into wisdom. Knowledge, we know, is the quest of sense, whilst wisdom is the omniscience of the synthetic knowledge of the soul. I have to repeat that again. Knowledge, we know, is the quest of sense, whilst wisdom is the omniscience of the synthetic knowledge of the soul. It's like the all, like, through and through knowing. Without understanding in the application of knowledge, however, we perish. For understanding is the application of knowledge in the light of wisdom to the problems of life and to the attainment of the goal. In this labor, Hercules is faced with the tremendous task of bringing together the two poles of his being and of coordinating or at-oneing soul and body so that duality gives place to unity and the pairs of opposites are blended. The twins. But he already has a twin. The symbols. Eurystheus, having watched Hercules achieve mental control and then ride the bull of desire over into the temple of the soul, now sets him the task of fetching the golden apples from the garden of Hesperides. The apple has long figured in mythology and in symbology. In the Garden of Eden, as we know, the serpent gave the apple to Eve, and with the giving of that apple, and with its acceptance came the knowledge of good and evil. This is a symbolic method of telling us the story of the appearance of mind and of how it began to function in that early creature, which was neither animal nor strictly human. With the coming of mind also came the knowledge of duality, of the pull of the pairs of opposites, of the nature of the soul, which is good, and of the nature of the form, which is evil, if it holds the soul and hinders it from full expression. It is not evil per se. Yeah, yeah, dude, I'm feeling it too. Those things are so powerful. This is powerful. It is to be noted that in the Garden of Eden, one single apple was given to the human being, the symbol of separateness, isolation. Hercules had to hunt for the golden apples in another garden, and in the garden of the Hesperides, the apples were the symbol of plurality, of synthesis, and of the many nourished by the one tree of life. Hercules was told only 3 facts: that there was a garden containing a tree whereon grew the golden apples, that the tree was guarded by the 100-headed serpent, that when he found it, he would find there these 3 beautiful maidens. But in what direction lay the garden, and how to find it, he was not told. This time he was not confined to the wild lands up and down which the man-eating mares ravaged, nor was he confined to the little island of Crete. The whole planet had to be searched, and he went up and down from north to south and from east to west, until at last he met Nereus, who was skilled in all wisdom and in all forms of speech. He is called in some of the classics the Ancient of the Sea. Ooh, I love that. That's in quotes, the Ancient of the Sea. He was not only wise, but very elusive, assuming many forms, and refused ever to give to Hercules a direct answer. Finally, he hinted as to the direction in which the apples should be sought, sending him on his way alone and somewhat discouraged, with only a vague idea as to what he would have to do and where he would have to go. All he knew was that he had to turn south, a symbol of going back into the world, the opposite pole of spirit. He had no sooner done so than he met the serpent with whom he had to wrestle. There's an asterisk, and down here it's linked with known in mythology also as the giant Antaeus, the son of Poseidon, god of waters, and Gaia, the earth. Hence, when in touch with the earth, his mother, he was invincible. So the sentence said, he had no sooner done so than he met the serpent with whom he had to wrestle. All right, I gotta get a sip. In his search for the golden apples on the physical plane, Hercules had to conquer, as do all disciples, glamour and illusion. For in the carrying forward of spiritual aspiration, the disciple is very apt to be taken in by astralism and lower psychism in one form or another. Wow, right? As Hercules wrestled with the serpent, he found he could not overcome it until he discovered that it was invincible only so long as it was in contact with the earth. Just as soon as Hercules lifted the serpent, Antaeus, high into the air, it became utterly weak and unable to defeat him. Gemini is an air sign, a mutable or common sign. Glamour is ever changing, ever taking one form or another. It concerns appearance and not reality, and the earth stands for appearances. Having vanquished the serpent that stood in his way, Hercules passed on in his search. His next encounter was with Glamour in another form. Busiris was a son of Poseidon, the god of the waters, but his mother was a mere mortal. He claimed to be a great teacher. He was fluent in speech and captivating in what he said. He made great claims for himself, leading Hercules to believe that he could show him the way, that he could lead him out into the light, and that he was the little custodian of truth. Oh wait, it doesn't say little. And that he was the custodian of truth. Hercules was completely deceived. Oh, that's where that word came in, right under it. Little by little, he fell under the power and spell of Busiris. Little by little, he yielded up his will and his mind and accepted him as his teacher and guide. Finally, when Busiris and Hercules entirely under his control, when Busiris had Hercules entirely under his control, he bound him to the altar of sacrifice and forced him to forget Nereus. The myth tells that Hercules eventually freed himself and resumed his search, binding Busiris to the altar whereupon he himself had lain. Again, we find discouragement, delay, failure, and deceit characterizing this part of the test. This is hitting me pretty hard. I don't know. We'll see. Still, searching up and down, he found Prometheus bound to a rock, with the vultures tearing at his liver. The sight of such suffering was more than Hercules could bear, and he turned aside from his search to release Prometheus, thus putting him in a position to drive away the vultures. We come now to the crucial point of the labor, and to that which constituted the real test. Hercules finds Atlas, bearing the load of the world on his shoulders, and staggering under the weight of the task he had undertaken. Hercules is so overcome by the stupendous enterprise of Atlas, and so concerned over his sufferings as he seeks to carry the weight of the world, that he gives up his search for the golden apples. He forgets what he himself has set out to do and, in pity, takes the load off the shoulders of Atlas and bears it himself. When we are told, in the wonderful consummation of the story, that Atlas, freed from his burden, goes to the garden of the Hesperides, plucks the golden apples without any let or hindrance from the 100-headed serpent, with the enthusiastic help of the 3 beautiful maidens, and brings the apples to Hercules, who now also stands free, in spite of all the obstacles and hindrances, the deviations due to glamour and illusion, despite failures and the length of time it has taken him to arrive at wisdom. Hercules does obtain the golden apples. Note that the opposite or consummating sign of Gemini is that of Sagittarius, the archer, who shoots straight and rides unhindered to the goal. No deviations, no failure. There is only a steady going forward. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Sweet, because also like Atlas, which is like the ruler of Atlantis. So that is saying a lot too. Damn, Bean, right? It's so fascinating. Juice, yay, welcome. So sweet. There's a part 2 to Labor 3. Okay, all right. Labor 2. Gathering the Golden Apples of the Hesperides, Part 2. Gemini, May 21st to June 20th. The Field of the Labor. Gemini has in it 2 stars, called by the Greeks Castor and Pollux, or the twins. These personify 2 major groups of stars, the 7 Pleiades and the 7 stars of the Great Bear, which are the 2 constellations in the north around which our universe seems to revolve. I love how every time um, our author Alice Bailey talks about the universe, she gives room for interpretation. I appreciate that. One star represents each constellation. From the standpoint of esotericism, the great mystery of God incarnate in matter and the crucifixion of the cosmic Christ upon the cross of matter is tied up with the relationship presumed from most ancient times to existence between the stars of the Pleiades and those of the Great Bear. These two groups of stars represent God, the macrocosm, whilst in Gemini, Castor and Pollux were regarded as symbols of man, the microcosm. They were also called Apollo and Hercules. Apollo meaning the ruler, the sun god, and Hercules, the one who comes to labor. They represent, therefore, the two aspects of man's nature, the soul and the personality, the spiritual man and the human being through which that spiritual entity is functioning. Christ incarnate in matter, God working through form. Castor was regarded as mortal, and Pollux as immortal. It is an interesting astronomical fact that the star Castor is waning in brilliancy and has not the light that it had several hundred years ago, whilst Pollux, the immortal brother, is waxing in brightness and eclipsing his brother. So, reminding one of the words of John the Baptist, spoken as he looked at the Christ, he must increase. He must increase, but I must decrease. St. John the Third. Or just St. John, 3, 30. Thus, we have a most significant constellation because it holds always before the eyes of man the thought of the increasing potency of the spiritual life and the decreasing power of the personal life. The story of man's growth to maturity and the history of the soul's gradually increasing control are told for us in the constellation Gemini. In the ancient zodiac of Dendera, this sign is called the place of him who cometh, and the thought of an emerging spiritual being is held before us. It is represented by two figures, the one male, the other female, one the positive, spirit aspect, and the other the negative, matter aspect. The Coptic and the Hebrew names signify united, and this is the status of Hercules, the aspirant. He is soul and body unified. This was the problem to be wrestled with in the sign Gemini. The at-one-ment of the lower with the higher self, of the mortal and the immortal aspects, is the objective. It was this problem that created the devious and prolonged search that Hercules undertook, for he was at length attentive to the voice of Nereus, the higher self, but sometimes under the illusion and glamour of the lower self. That's powerful, right? Oh no! What am I doing? I don't know. Okay. The duality which is emphasized in Gemini runs through a large number of the mythological stories. We meet the same brothers again in Romulus and Remus, for instance, and in Cain and Abel, one brother dying and the other living. We meet the astrological symbol for Gemini in the two pillars of Masonry, and many believe that the Masonic tradition could, if we had the power to do so, be traced back to that period, antedating the Taurian age, when the sun was in Gemini, and to that great cycle in which the Lemurian race, the first strictly human race, came into being, where the mind aspect began to emerge and the duality of mankind became a fact in nature. Plus, if you want to learn a little bit more about the origins of secret societies and all the different interesting things about the Masons and stuff, like that book I just read is called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. Go read it, or you can take a listen. I read it. I live streamed it too. It's really good. It's juicy. It's so juicy. Okay. Oh, I just straight on touched my glasses. It's okay. The Lemurian race was the third race, and this labor that Hercules symbolically undertook is the third labor. The search upon which he was engaged was for the soul, and this has ever been the unrecognized search of the human being until the time comes when he knows himself to be Hercules and starts to concentrate upon the search for the golden apples of instruction and wisdom. So we have in the Masonic tradition the search of the human family typified, the search for light, the search for unity, the search for divinity. And so the two pillars, Boaz and Jachin, oh no, stand as the emblems of that duality. So let's learn how, or I need to learn how to say that. Boaz and Jachin, Jachin, Jachin. Okay, let's find out how we pronounce that. Let's find out. Oh my gosh. Okay, thank goodness. I thought that someone's alarm outside was just going to keep blaring. I need to calm down, Allie B. Okay. Boaz. Pronunciation.
Boaz.
Yeah, Boaz. Okay, and then Jachin. Oh no, let's find out. Jachin.
Jachin.
Jachin. Okay.
Jachin.
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 Jachin. All right. To YouTubes. Okay, so. And so the two pillars, Boaz and Jachin, stand as the emblems of that duality. In China, Castor and Pollux are spoken of as two gods of the door, showing the tremendous power that the god of matter can assume and also the potency of divinity. Gemini is predominantly the sign of the intellect, and it has a peculiarly vital effect on our Aryan race. In this race, the mind faculty and the intellect have been steadily developed. Gemini, therefore, has influence in three departments, which concern themselves with human relations. First, it governs all education. It deals with knowledge, with the sciences, and lays the foundation for wisdom. One educator has said that the ultimate purpose of education is the acquiring of knowledge in order to receive the higher revelation. The unintelligent may receive it, but they cannot interpret it. End quote. This is the labor Hercules receives, an outstanding revelation, and in the 5 stages of his search, his education is steadily carried forward. The exoteric ruler, the outside ruler, the exoteric ruler of Gemini and of the first decadent is Mercury, for as Alan Leo tells us, quote, Mercury in the outer world signifies schools, colleges, and all places where teaching and learning go on, scientific and literary instruction. In consciousness, it signifies thought, understanding, reason, intellect, the abstract kinds rather than the concrete knowledge for its own sake. Its highest application seems to be what is called pure reason. In body, it governs the brain and nervous system, the tongue and organs of speech, the hands as instruments of intelligence. Dang, that's nice. That's okay. So that's by Alan Leo, Complete Dictionary of Astrology, page 163. I think I just had a piece of my breakfast come out of my teeth. Gross. I don't know. Could have kept that to myself. Oh, right. Gemini stands, secondly, for the relation between. It governs, therefore, language, intercourse, or intercommunication, and commerce. It is interesting to note that the United States and London are both governed by Gemini, that the English language is becoming predominantly the world tongue, that the greatest lines of ocean communication start from New York or London, and that both these cities have been world markets and world centers of distribution. Mercury, the ruling planet of the sign, is the interpreter, the messenger of the gods. It is worth noticing also in this connection how Hercules comes under the influence of two teachers, Nereus, the higher teacher, and Busiris, the lower or psychic teacher. And thus we again have emphasized both the duality of Gemini and its mental quality. When this sign is in evidence, uh, as it is now, being a powerful mutable sign, it inaugurates many changes. New ideas flood the world. Excuse me. New impulses make their presence felt. New and undeveloped lines of approach to spiritual truth emerge. And many teachers will arise everywhere to help lead the race into a new state of spiritual awareness. Being an air sign, we find that the conquest of the air proceeds with speed, and also a constant effort is made to unify and coordinate the many and varied aspects of human endeavor. Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini and governs the second decadent. Is that how we're saying this? Decadent. Let's look it up. It's decadent. It's the second 10th, right? Or I'm not sure. Let's find out. Decadent. Zerp-der-doo. Okay. Yeah, it's a decan. It's a decan. Right. So it's like, okay, a degree. Now let's find out how to pronounce it.
Decanates or decanates.
Decanates. Okay, I'm good. Cool.
Decanates or decanates.
Decanates. All right. YouTube. Bam. Desert Rose. Dr. E. Oh my gosh. Hi, everyone. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Thanks for being here with me. It's so fascinating. So, right. Where was I? This page, I think. Decanates. So, yeah, we talked about the English and London connection, New York, London, blah, blah. Mercury. Busiris, the lower psychic teacher. Okay. Varied aspects of human endeavor. Yeah, we did that. Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini and governs the second decadent. For Venus makes at one, and through its influence, the law of attraction and the bringing together of the polar opposites takes place. But all these changes and unifications naturally inaugurate a new state of awareness, a new state of being, and bring in a new age and a new world. Consequently, new difficulties and problems arise, and we find Saturn governing the last decadent. For Saturn is the planet of discipleship, the planet that brings about the difficulties, problems, and tests that offer to the disciple immediate opportunity. It is Saturn that opens the door to incarnation, and Saturn that opens the door on the path of initiation. Mercury, the interpreter and the illuminating intellect, Venus, the principle of attraction and of at-one-ment, and Saturn, the generator of opportunity. These three play their parts in the life of the aspirant as he unifies higher and lower passes through the 5 stages in his test, the 5 stages in this test, and visions the goal which ultimately he must achieve. Dang right. The 3 symbolic constellations. The 3 constellations to be found in connection with the sign are Lepus, the hare, Canis Major, and Canis Minor. And in their interrelation and in their association with Hercules, the aspirant, the whole story of the human being is again most strikingly portrayed. Okay, so is it Lepus or Lepus? 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 All right, I'm in the very first. All right, I'm just going to find out how to say that word.
Constellation of Lepus, which
Lepus.
is pretty close, but
Cool. Lepus. Hopefully she knows how to say it. Oh, it's about how to pronounce it. All right. Okay. Lepus. Okay. In Canis Major, we find Sirius, the dog star, called in many old books the leader of the entire heavenly host, for it is 10 or 12 times brighter than any other star of the first magnitude. Sirius has always been associated with great heat. Hence, we have the phrase of the dog days in the middle of the summer, when the heat is supposed to be the greatest. From the standpoint of the occultist, Sirius is of profound significance. Our God is a consuming fire, and Sirius is the symbol of the universal soul as well as of the individual soul. It is therefore esoterically considered the star of initiation. In the language of symbology, we are told, here comes a moment, there comes a moment when a star blazes forth before the initiate, signifying his realization of his identity with the universal soul. And this he suddenly glimpses through the medium of his own soul, his own star. Canis Major is the immortal hound of heaven that chases forever the lesser dog, the underdog, the man in physical incarnation. This chase has been immortalized for us by Francis Thompson in The Hound of Heaven. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the year. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind and in the midst of tears. I hid from him, and under running laughter, up vistaed hopes I sped, and shot, precipitated, adown titanic glooms of chasmed fears, from whose strong feet that followed after. In the zodiac of Dendera, the star is called Apes, the head. It's probably, is it apes? I think it's Apes, I don't know. We are told in the appendix, page 1518 of the Companion Bible, that the brightest star in Canis Major is Sirius, the prince, called the Persian, the chieftain. There are these other stars. Oh, there are 3 other stars in the same constellation. One is called the Announcer, another the Shining One, and the third the Glorious. All of them phrases emphasizing the magnificence of Canis Major and, esoterically, the wonder and the glory of the higher self. In Canis Major, the underdog, the same writing tells us that the name of the brightest star signifies Redeemer, that the next brightest is the burden bearer, or the one who bears for others. We have, therefore, in the significance of these 2 names, the portrayal of Hercules, as he works out his own salvation and as he bears the great burden of Atlas and learns the meaning of service. Oh, let's fix that. Hey, buddy! Hey, Corey! Awesome! I know, I can't wait for the show. We have a show tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm pretty pumped about it. Okay, Meaning of service. Lepus, the hair associated with these two constellations, contains a star of the most intense crimson color, almost like a drop of blood. Red is ever the symbol of desire for material things. In the zodiac of Dendera, the name given is Bashtabeki, which means falling confounded. Aratus, writing about 250 BC, speaks of Lepus as being chaste eternally. And it is interesting to note that the Hebrew names of some of the stars found in the constellation signify the enemy of the coming one, which is the meaning of the name of the brightest star, Arneb, whilst three other stars have names meaning the mad, the bound, and the deceiver. All these words are characteristics of the lower self-chaste eternally by the higher self, the human soul pursued by the hound of heaven. Self-chaste. As we look at the starry heavens at night and locate Sirius, the dog star, the story of our past, present, and future is dramatically pictured. We have the story of our past in Lepus, the hare, fleet of foot, deceived, mad, bound to the wheel of life, identified with the matter aspect, and ever the enemy of the coming prince. In Canis Minor, we have the story of the aspirant, of our present lot. Dwelling within us is the inner ruler, the hidden divinity, the redeemer. We go forth conquering and to conquer, but we have to do it as the burdened disciple, bearing for others and serving. In Canis Major, we have portrayed our future and a consummation glorious beyond all present realization. Were all religions and all scriptures of the world to be lost, and were there nothing left to us except the starry heavens, the story of the zodiac, and the significance of the names of the various stars found in the different constellations, we should be able to retrace the history of man, recover the knowledge of our goal, and learn the mode of its achievement. Ooh, dang, that is empowering. Man. The lesson of the labor. The whole of this story really signifies the lesson, which is the first that all aspirants have to master, and one which is impossible to learn until the tests in Aries and in Taurus have been undergone. Then, on the physical plane, in the field of the brain, and in his waking consciousness, the disciple has to register contact with the soul and to recognize its qualities. He must no longer be the visionary mystic, but must add to the mystical achievement the occult knowledge of reality. Ooh, right? This is often forgotten by aspirants. They rest content with aspiration and with the vision of the heavenly goal. They have wrought out in the crucible of life an equipment that is characterized by sincerity, good desire, fine character, and they are conscious of purity of motive, a willingness to fulfill the requirements, and the satisfaction that they have reached a certain status of development which entitles them to go on. But one thing still lacks. They have not what might be called technique of the presence. They have not privilege and prerogative to possess. They believe in the fact of the soul, in the possibility of perfection, in the path which must be trodden. But belief has not yet been transmuted into knowledge of the spiritual realm, and they know not how to make their goal. So they, as Hercules did, start on the fivefold search. Dang, right? That is powerful. The first stage of that search is full of encouragement for them. had they been able to recognize the happening. Like Hercules, they met Nereus, the symbol of the higher self, and later on in the history of the disciple, he is the symbol of the teaching master. Man. When contacted, especially in the early stages of the search, the higher self will manifest as a flash of illumination, and lo, it is gone, as a sudden realization of truth, so elusive, so fleeting, that at first the disciple cannot grasp it, as a hint dropped into the consciousness in moments of one-pointed attention. When the mind is held steady and the emotions temporarily cease to control. In the case of a more advanced disciple who has established contact with his soul and who, therefore, may be supposed to be ready for instruction from one of the great teachers of the race, it will be found that the master works just as Nereus did. He cannot always be contacted, and only occasionally does the disciple come into touch with him. When he does, he need not expect congratulation upon his wonderful progress, nor will he find a careful elucidation of his problem, or a lengthy outline of the work that he should do. I don't know why that makes me laugh so much. Oh, shoot. Okay. The master will give a hint and disappear. He will make suggestion and will say no more. It is for the disciple to act upon the hint as best he may and to follow up the suggestion should he deem it wise. Many well-meaning occultists should lead one to believe that the masters of the wisdom take a personal interest in them, that the overburdened guides of the race have no better occupation than to tell them personally how to live, how to solve their problems, and how, in detail, to guide their undertakings. I would like here to go on record as protesting against any such belittling of the work of the great ones. The reasons that Nereus, the master, is elusive and gives but a flash of thought or of momentary attention is to the aspirant. Attention to the aspirant are two. First, the individual aspirant is of no personal interest to the master until he has achieved the point in his evolution where he is so closely in touch with his soul that he becomes a magnetic server in the world. Then and only then will it profit the master to throw him a thought and to give him a hint. Then, as those hints are followed, he may give him more, but, and this is the point that must be emphasized, only in connection with the work that he has to do in the field of world service. Aspirants need to remember that they become masters only by mastering, and that we are taught to be masters and are brought to the position of membership in the band of world servers through the efforts of our own soul. That soul is a divine son of God, omniscient and omnipotent. As the immortal twin increases the power and brilliance, that of the mortal brother decreases. Second, the physical bodies of the aspirant are in no condition to stand the greatly heightened vibration of the one who has achieved. The body would be shattered and the brain overstrained if one of the masters made constant contact with a disciple before he had even learned how to know Nereus as the symbol of his own higher self. When by our own efforts we are beginning to live as souls, and when by our own self-initiated endeavor we are learning to serve and to be channels of spiritual energy, then we shall know Nereus more intimately, and then, almost inevitably, our knowledge of the work that the great ones have to do will be so vital and so real that we will forego our own desire for contact to seek only to lift the burden that they carry. Wow. At the beginning of his search, Hercules met Nereus, but he was not impressed, and so wandered elsewhere, furiously seeking the satisfaction of his aspiration. At the close of his search, he meets Atlas, bearing the burden of the world, and so impressed is he with the weight of that responsibility and the load that Atlas, the great master, is carrying, that he forgets all about the goal and his search for the golden apples and endeavors to lift the burden off the shoulders of Atlas. When the aspirant in the religious field and in the church, in the theosophical field, in the Rosicrucian field, and in the many groups to which they gravitate, have learned to forget themselves in service and to lose sight of their spiritual selfishness by helping humanity, there will be a much more rapid gathering in of initiates through the portal onto the path that leads from darkness to the light, and from the unreal to the real. One of the great ones has said that there are persons who, without ever having any external sign of selfishness, are intensely selfish in their inner spiritual aspiration. That's page 360, the Mahatma Letters to A.P. Sinnett. And later he holds out before us a stupendous ideal which cuts at the root of spiritual selfishness. Quote, in our view, the highest aspirations for the welfare of humanity become tainted with selfishness if, in the mind of the philanthropist, there lurks the shadow of desire for self-benefit. Unquote. Hercules, the disciple, has known the touch of the higher self, but he did not know enough to stay with Nereus. So he turns south or goes back into the world. He has had his high moment when he transcended his brain consciousness and held converse with his soul. But this does not last, and he drops back into the brain consciousness and enters upon another experience. He has to wrestle with Antaeus, the serpent or giant. But this time, it is the serpent of astral glamour and not primarily the serpent of desire. It is with the glamours of lower psychism that he has to wrestle, and these seem, in the early stages, inevitably to attract the interest of aspirants. Any teacher who has worked with those who are seeking the way knows the glamour under which they can so easily fall. According to the temperament of the aspirant, so will be the glamour. Of course. Some get sidetracked by spiritualistic phenomena. In the endeavor to penetrate within the veil, they become engrossed with the lower side of spiritualism and pass much time in the seance room studying over and over again the same old phenomena of materialism, spirit communication and manifestation. I make here no reference to the truly scientific investigations of those who go deeply into this research and who are equipped to do so. I refer to the ignorant participation in certain types of seance room work. This intrigues the average man or woman and puts them at the mercy of the equally ignorant medium or the charlatan, for they are unequipped to verify in any way that which they see and hear. Ooh. The serpent may take the form of the more common aspect of psychic phenomena. The aspirant becomes interested in automatic writing, or he learns to sit and listen to voices. He becomes astrally clairvoyant or clairaudient and adds to the confusion of the physical plane and his own particular environment the still greater confusion of the psychic plane, and so falls into the snares and pitfalls of astralism. He becomes negative because he is all the time trying to hear or see that which is not physical. Because we share with cats and dogs the capacity to be clairvoyant and clairaudient, in due time we shall surely see or hear, if not in truth, yet through the power of that creative faculty which we all possess, a creative imagination. But in some form or another, the aspirant who has left Nereus will meet the serpent and will have to wrestle with him. As the myth states, for a long time Hercules could not conquer, but when he lifted the serpent high up in the air, he prevailed. There is a great truth underlying this symbolism. The air has always been regarded as the symbol or the element related to the Christ plane, called the Theosophical terminology, and in the East, the Buddhic plane. The astral plane is the distorted reflection of the Buddhic plane, and it is only when we carry glamour up into the clear light of the Christ soul that we shall see truth as it is and become invincible. Most solemnly, I would urge upon all aspirants to forego all interest in psychic phenomena and to shut out as steadily as they can the astral plane until they have developed the power to be intuitive and to interpret their intuitions through the medium of a well-developed, well-stocked, well-trained mind. That's good advice. The next stage of the search of Hercules is equally applicable to humanity as a whole. He fell into the clutches of Busiris, who claimed to be a great teacher. For a long period of time, Hercules was kept in bondage. The world today is full of teachers, and like Busiris, they base their teaching upon pretentious claims. They claim to be initiates, to be the custodians of truth, and to have a sure and certain way of development, which must inevitably enable the aspirant to achieve. They bolster up their position by promises. They build up a strong personality relationship, and by utilizing the sincerity and the aspiration of the seeker after truth, they gather around themselves groups of men and women who innocently and sincerely believe the truth of the claims that they make, and bind them to the altar of sacrifice for a longer or a shorter period of time. The true initiate is known by his life of acts. He is too busy serving the race to find time to interest people in himself, and he cannot make promises beyond saying to every aspirant, "These are the ancient rules. This is the way that all the saints and masters of the wisdom have trod. This is the disciple to which you may subject yourself. And if you will but try and have endurance and patience, the goal will surely be yours." But Hercules freed himself, as do all sincere seekers, and having escaped from the world of psychic and pseudo-spiritual glamour, he began to serve. First, he freed himself under the symbol of Prometheus, who signifies God incarnate, releasing him from the torture of the vultures of old. The solar plexus, the stomach, and the liver are externalizations, if I might so express it, of the desire nature, and Hercules freed himself from the vultures of desire that had for so long tortured him. He gave up being selfish and gave up satisfying himself. He had had 2 bitter lessons in this sign, and for this particular cycle was relatively free. Prometheus, the god within, could go forward to the service of the world to lifting the burden of Atlas. After the sacrifice comes the reward, and Hercules received his great surprise after freeing both Prometheus and Atlas. Having given up his search in order to help the world, Atlas went from him to the garden and handed to him the golden apples, bringing him in touch with the 3 beautiful maidens, the 3 aspects of soul. At the beginning of his labor, he contacts his soul as Nereus. At the close of the labor, having overcome much glamour, he achieves a greatly increased vision of his soul and sees it in the 3 aspects, each one holding in it the potency of the 3 principles of divinity. Eagle symbolizes the glory of the life and the splendor of the setting sun, the magnificence of manifestation on the physical plane. She gives an apple to Hercules, saying, "The way to us is ever through deeds of love." Erythea keeps the gate, the soul, which is ever opened by love wisdom, and she gives to Hercules an apple marked with the golden word service. Hesperus, the evening star, the star of initiation, typifies the will. She says to Hercules, "Tread the way, body, soul, and spirit, intelligence, love, and will, visioned and contacted, by the selfless aspirant through service. Ooh, dang. I like that. Oh, man. So let me see how long this next chapter is. Labor 4. Wow. Oh, there's 2 parts. That's right. You know what? We're going to read Labor 4. We're going to get into it. It's only been an hour and 10 minutes, and this isn't super long. We'll probably get into 2 hours maybe. Okay. Labor 4. Let's get a drink too. The capture of the doe or hind. Part 1. Cancer, June 21st to July 21st. The myth. The great presiding one, who sits within the council chamber of the Lord, spoke to the teacher, standing by his side. Where is the Son of Man, who is the Son of God? How fares he? How is he tested? And with what service is he now engaged? The teacher said, casting his eye upon the Son of Man, who is a Son of God. Not at this time, O great presiding one. The third great test provided much of a teaching sustenance to a learner such as he. He ponders and reflects. Provide a test which will evoke his wisest choice. Send him to labor in a field wherein he must decide which voice of all the many voices will arouse the obedience of his heart. Provide likewise a test of great simplicity upon the outer plane, and yet a test which will awaken, on the inner side of life, the fullness of his wisdom and the rightness of his power to choose. Let him proceed with the 4th test. Before the 4th great gate stood Hercules, a son of man and yet a son of God. At first was silence deep. He uttered not a word or made a sound. Beyond the gate the landscape stretched in contours fair, and on the far horizon stood the temple of the Lord, the shrine of the sun god, the gleaming battlements. Upon a hill near by there stood a slender fawn, and Hercules, who is a son of man and yet a son of God, both watched and listened, and listening heard a voice. The voice came out from that bright circle of the moon, which is the home of Artemis, and Artemis the fair spoke words of warning to the Son of Man. The doe is mine, so touch it not, she said. For ages long I nurtured it and tended it when young. The doe is mine, and mine it must remain. Then into view Diana sprang, the huntress of the heavens, the daughter of the sun. Leaping on sandaled feet towards the doe, she likewise claimed possession. Not so, she said, Artemis, fairest maid, the doe is mine, and mine it must remain. Too young until today, it now can be of use. The golden antlered hind is mine, not yours, and mine it shall remain. Hercules, standing between the pillars of the gate, listened and heard the quarrel, and wondered much as the 2 maidens strove for possession of the doe. Another voice fell on his ear, and with commanding accents said, The doe belongs to neither maid, O Hercules, but to the god whose shrine you see on yonder distant mount. Go rescue it, and bear it to the safety of the shrine, and leave it there. A simple thing to do, O Son of Man. Yet, and ponder well my words, being a son of God, you thus can seek and hold the doe. Go forth. Through the 4th gate sprang Hercules. Well, dang. Okay, wait, no, it's all good. I was just thinking about... Never mind. It's all good. Through the 4th gate sprang Hercules, leaving behind the many gifts received, and cumbered not himself in the swift chase which lay ahead. And from a distance the quarreling maidens watched. Artemis the fair, bending from out the moon, and Diana, beauteous huntress of the woods of God, followed the movements of the doe, and when due cause arose, they each deluded Hercules, seeking to foil his efforts. He chased the doe from point to point, and each with subtlety deceived him. And this they did time and again. Thus, for the length of a full year, the Son of Man, who is a Son of God, followed the doe from place to place, catching swift glimpses of its form, only to find that in the fastness of the deep woods it had been lost. From hill to hill and wood to wood, he hunted it until close to a quiet pool, full length upon the untrampled grass, he saw it sleeping, wearied with its flight. With quiet step, outstretched hand, and steadfast eye, he shot an arrow towards the doe, and in its foot he wounded it. Exciting all the will of which he was possessed, he nearer drew, and yet the doe moved not. Thus he drew close, and clasped the doe within his arms, close to his heart. And Artemis and fair Diana both looked on. "The search is o'er," he chanted loud. Into the northern darkness I was led, and found no doe. Into the deep dark woods I fought my way, but found no doe. And over dreary plains, and arid wilderness, and deserts wild, I struggled towards the doe, yet found it not. At each point reached, the maidens turned my steps, but still I did persist, and now the doe is mine. The doe is mine. "Not so, Hercules," came to his ears the voice of one who stands close to the great Poseidon one, within the council chamber of the Lord. "The doe belongs not to a son of man, e'en though a son of God. Carry the doe to yonder distant shrine, where dwell the sons of God, and leave it there with them." "Why so, O teacher wise? The doe is mine, mine by long search and travel, and mine likewise because I hold the doe close at my heart." "And are you not a son of God, although a son of man? And is this and is the shrine not also your abode? And share you not the life of all who dwell therein? Bear to the shrine of God the sacred doe, and leave it there, O Son of God." Then to the holy shrine of Mykenna, Hercules bore the doe, carrying it to the center of the holy place, and there he laid it down. And as he laid it down before the Lord, he noted on its foot the wound made by an arrow from the bow he had possessed and used. The doe was his. The doe was his by right of search. The doe was his by right of skill and the prowess of his arm. "The doe is therefore doubly mine," he said. But Artemis, standing within the outer court of that most holy place, heard his loud cry of victory and said, "Not so. The doe is mine, and always has been mine. I saw its form reflected in the water. I heard its feet upon the ways of earth. I know the doe is mine, for every form is mine." The sun god spoke from out the holy place. "The doe is mine, not yours, O Artemis. The spirit rests with me from all eternity, here in the center of the holy shrine. You may not enter here, O Artemis, but know I speak the truth. Diana, that fair huntress of the Lord, may enter for a moment and tell you what she sees." Into the shrine for one brief moment passed the huntress of the Lord, and saw the form of that which was the doe, lying before the altar, seeming dead. And in distress she said, "But if its spirit rests with thee, O great Apollo, noble son of God, then now the doe is dead. The doe is slain by the man who is a son of man, e'en though a son of God. Why may he pass within the shrine, and we await the doe out here?" Because he bore the doe within his arms, close to his heart. And in the holy place the doe finds rest, and so does man. All men are mine. The doe is likewise mine, not yours, nor man's, but mine. And Hercules, returning from the test, passed through the gate again, and found his way back to the teacher of his life. "I have fulfilled the task set by the great Poseidon one. Simple it was, except for length of time and weariness of search. I listened not to those who made their claim, nor faltered on the way. The doe is in the holy place, close to the heart of God, and likewise, in the hour of need, close to my heart also. Go look again, O Hercules, my son, between the pillars of the gate. And Hercules obeyed. Beyond the gate, the landscape stretched in contours fair, and on the far horizon stood the temple of the Lord, the shrine of the sun god, with glistening battlements, whilst on the nearby hill there stood a slender fawn. Did I perform the test, O teacher wise? The fawn is back upon the hill, where I earlier saw it stand. And from the council chamber of the Lord, where sits the great presiding one, there came a voice. Again and yet again must all the sons of men, who are the sons of God, seek for the golden antlered fawn, and bear it to the holy place again and yet again. Then said the teacher to the Son of Man, who is a son of God, labor the fourth is over, and from the nature of the test, and from the labor, and from the nature of the dough, frequent must be the search. Forget this not, but ponder on the lesson learnt. The Tibetan. Interesting. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for her analysis. Synthesis of the signs. Cancer is the last of what we might call the four preparatory signs. Whether we are considering the involution of the soul or matter, or the evolution of the aspirant as he struggles out of the human into the spiritual kingdom. Being equipped with the faculty of mind in Aries and with desire in Taurus, and having arrived at the realization of his essential duality in Gemini, the incarnating human being enters through birth in Cancer to the human kingdom. Career, or that's not what it says. Cancer is a mass sign, and the influences which pour from it are held by many esotericists to bring about the formation of the human family, of the race, the nation, and the family unit. Where the aspirant is concerned, the story is somewhat different, for in these four signs, he prepares his equipment and learns to utilize it. In Aries, he grips his mind and seeks to bend it to his need, learning mental control. In Taurus, the mother of illumination, he receives his first flash of that spiritual light, which will grow increasingly more brilliant as he nears his goal. In Gemini, he not only appreciates the two aspects of his nature, but in the mortal aspect begins to increase at the expense of the mortal. Now, in Cancer, he gets his first touch of that more universal sense, which is the higher aspect of the mass consciousness. Equipped, therefore, with a controlled mind, a capacity to register illumination, an ability to contact his immortal aspect, and intuitively to recognize the kingdom of spirit, he is ready now for the greater work. In the next four signs, which we must regard as the signs of physical plane struggle for achievement, we have portrayed for us the tremendous battle through the medium of which the self-conscious individual, emerging out of the mass in Cancer, knows himself to be the individual in Leo, the potential Christ in Virgo, the aspirant endeavoring to balance the pairs of the opposites in Libra, and the one who overcomes illusion in Scorpio. These are the four signs of crisis and of stupendous endeavor. In them, all the illumination, intuition, and soul power of which Hercules, the aspirant, is capable, are utilized to the uttermost. These have their reflection, too, on the it's a double, it's going from another line. Involutionary arc. Okay. These have their reflection, too, on the involutionary arc, and a similar sequence of unfoldment can be traced. The soul achieves individuality in Leo, becomes the nurturer of ideas and of potential capacities in Virgo, swings violently from one extreme to the other in Libra, and is subjected to the disciplining effects of the world of illusion and form in Scorpio. In the final four signs, we have the signs of achievement. The aspirant has worked out of the world of glamour and of form, and is consciously and in his consciousness, wow, I really struggled with that word. I don't know why. And in his consciousness is free from their limitations. Now he can be the archer in Sagittarius, going straight for his goal. Now he can be the goat in Capricorn, scaling the mount of initiation. Now he can be the world worker in Aquarius and the world savior in Pisces. Thus he can sum up in himself all the gains of the preparatory period and of the fiercely fought battles of the 4 signs of strenuous activity, and in these 4 final signs demonstrate the gains achieved and the powers developed. This brief summation of the signs, as they affect Hercules, will serve to give some idea of the wonderful synthesis of the picture, and of the steady progression and of the controlled unfolding of the various forces which play their subtle parts in bringing about the changes in the life of man. 3 words summarize the objective self-awareness, or the conscious aspect of the evolving human being: instinct, intellect, and intuition. Ooh. The sign which we are now studying is predominantly the sign of instinct, but the sublimation of the instinct is the intuition. In the same way as matter has to be lifted up into heaven, so instinct has to be likewise lifted up, and when it has been thus transcended and transmuted, it manifests as intuition, symbolized by the doe. Ooh. The intermediate stage is that of the intellect. The great need of Hercules now is to develop his intuition and to become familiar with that instantaneous recognition of truth and reality, which is the high prerogative and potent factor in the life of a liberated son of God. Wow. Meaning of the story. Eurystheus, therefore, sent Hercules to capture the golden-horned Carnian doe or hind. The word hind comes from an old Gothic word meaning that which must be seized. In other words, oh wow, that which must be seized. In other words, that which is elusive and difficult to secure. This doe was sacred to Artemis, the goddess of the moon, but Diana, the huntress of the heavens, the daughter of the sun, also claimed it, and there was a quarrel as to ownership. Hercules accepted the change of Eurystheus and set out to capture the gentle hind. He was a whole year hunting it, going from one forest to another, just catching sight of it, and then again losing it. Month after month went by, and he never could catch and hold it. Success at last crowned his efforts, and he seized the doe, flung it over his shoulder, held it close to his heart, and carried it to the sacred temple at Mycenae, where he laid it down before the altar in the holy place. Then he stood back, pleased with his success. This is one of the shortest of the stories, but though we are told very little, this labor, when considered thoughtfully, is one of profound and outstanding interest, and the lesson it holds is of deep import. There is no success for the aspirant until he has transmuted instinct into intuition, nor is there right use of the intellect until the intuition is brought into play. Interpreting and extending the intellect and bringing realization, then instinct is subordinated to both. Ooh. So, Labor 4, Part 2 here. The capture of the doe or hind, Cancer, June 21st to July 21st. Qualities of the sign. Cancer is called the crab, and the Greeks tell us that it was the crab that was sent by Hera to bite the foot of Hercules. Again, we meet this symbol in the vulnerable heel of Achilles. This is an interesting way of expressing the liabilities of the incarnation process and of illustrating the handicaps which beset the soul as it travels along the path of evolution. It symbolizes the limitation of all physical incarnation, for Cancer is one of the two great gates of the zodiac. It is the gate into the world of forms, into physical incarnation, and the sign wherein the duality of form and of soul is unified in the physical body. The opposite sign to Cancer is Capricorn, and these two constitute the two gates, one being the gate into form life and the other into spiritual life, one opening the door into the mass form of the human family, and the other into the universal state of consciousness, which is the kingdom of spirit. One marks the beginning of human experience on the physical plane, the other marks its climax. One signifies potentiality, and the other consummation. We are told that Christ gave to St. Peter the keys of heaven and earth. He gave to him, therefore, the keys of these two gates. We read, Jesus gives to Peter the keys of the two principal gates of the zodiac, which are the two solstical points. Solsticial points. Okay, so we're talking about the solstice points, all right. The zodiac signs Cancer and Capricorn, called the gates of the sun. Through Cancer, or the gate of man, the soul descends upon earth to unite with the body, which is its spiritual death. Through Capricorn, the gate of the gods, it reascends to heaven. That's from E. Valentia Straighton, the Celestial Ship of the North, Volume 2, page 206. In the zodiac of Dendera, the sign Cancer is represented by a beetle called in Egypt, the scarab. The word scarab means only begotten. I didn't know that. Cool. The word scarab means only begotten. It stands, therefore, for birth into incarnation, or in relation to the aspirant for the new birth. The month of June in ancient Egypt was called Muor, which again means rebirth. And thus, both the sign and the name hold steadily before us the thought of the taking of form and of coming into physical incarnation. In an ancient zodiac in India, dated about 400 BC, the sign is represented again by a beetle. The Chinese called this sign the red bird, for red is the symbol of desire, and the bird is the symbol of that flashing forth into incarnation and of appearance in time and space. The bird appears quite frequently in the zodiac and in ancient mythological stories. Hamsa, the bird of the Hindu tradition, the bird out of time and space, stands equally for the manifestation of God and of man. Out of the darkness flashes the bird and flies across the horizon in the light of the day, disappearing again into the darkness. Our word goose comes from the same Sanskrit root through the Icelandic, and when we say, "What a goose you are," we are really making a most esoteric affirmation. We are saying to another human being, "You are the bird out of time and space. You are the soul taking form. You are God in incarnation." The crab lives half on earth and half in the water. It is the sign, therefore, of the soul dwelling in the physical body, but predominantly living in the water, which is the symbol of the emotional, feeling nature. Exoterically, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is always the mother of form, controlling the waters and the tides. Therefore, in this sign, the form is dominant and constitutes a handicap. The crab builds its house or shell and carries it upon its back, and people born in this sign are always conscious of that which they have built. They are usually oversensitive, over-emotional, over-seeking to hide away. The Cancer native is so sensitive that he is difficult to handle and so elusive and sometimes so indefinite that it is hard to understand him or to pin him down. The Cardinal Cross. Cancer is one of the arms in the Cardinal Cross. One arm is Aries, the sign of beginning, of commencement, of subjective life, of the parental stage or involution, and of the first step, either towards form taking or towards spiritual liberation. A third arm of the cross is Libra, the balance, the choosing between, the beginning of the treading of the narrow razor edged path to which the Buddha so frequently refers. Capricorn, the fourth arm, again is birth, the birth of the world savior, birth into the spiritual kingdom, birth out of the world of matter into the world of being. Involution, incarnation, expression, aspiration are the four words that express the story of the Cardinal Cross in the heavens. The cross of the initiate. The stars. There are no bright stars at all in Cancer, no conspicuous or brilliant star, because Cancer is a sign of hiding, of retreat behind that which has been constructed. It is not a striking constellation. It is interesting to note that there is no Hebrew word for crab. That is interesting. It was regarded as unclean and not mentioned. So is the material form regarded from the standpoint of spirit, and esotericists tell us that the physical body is not a principle. The substitution of the Egyptian sacred scarab for the crab seems a recognition of the quality of Cancer in its higher aspect when the native is an aspirant or disciple, for we go round the zodiac many times. There are 83 stars in this sign. Really? 11. The brightest of which is of the third magnitude, and in the very center of the constellation there is a cluster of stars. Praesepe, the manager called by modern astronomers the beehive. The latter is a marvelous symbol of the collective organization of the human family and is one of the reasons why this is always regarded as a mass sign. In the mass, instinct rules. Therefore, Cancer is the sign of instinct, of herd life, of mass reaction. It represents the subconscious mind, hereditary instinct, and the collective imagination. It stands individually for the totality of the life and the consciousness of the cells in the body, and of that instinctive collective life, which is largely subconscious in man, but which always influences his physical body and, subjectively, his lower mind and emotional being. The unevolved Cancer native is immersed in the mass. He is an unconscious part of the great whole, and therein lies the problem. For the average Cancer person, as well as for the aspirant who is performing the labor of this sign, is subjected to the urge to lift himself up out of the mass to which he is held by his instinct, and to develop instead the intuition which will enable him to so rise. Will enable him so to rise. This sign is sometimes called the coffin by the Hebrews because it marks loss of identity, whilst the early Christians called it the grave of Lazarus, who was raised from the dead. In these words, coffin, grave, crab, and in the reference, which we sometimes find to Cancer as the womb, we have the thought of hidden life, of a veiling form, of potentiality, and of that struggle with circumstances which will eventually produce, in Leo, the emergence of the individual, and in Capricorn, the birth of a world savior. Definitely, therefore, it portrays the struggle that goes on in the life of the aspirant so that the instinct can give place eventually to intuition. Interesting. All of this is so interesting. Oh man. At one mint with Capricorn. It is interesting to contrast the two signs, Cancer and Capricorn, for that which is indicated in Cancer is consummated in Capricorn. Cancer represents the home, the mother. It is personal and emotional, while Capricorn represents the group, which the unit consciously enters, and also the father of all that is. The gate of Cancer is entered through the process of transference out of the animal state of consciousness into the human, whilst the gate of Capricorn is entered through initiation. One is inevitable, subconscious, and potential. The other is self-initiated, self-conscious, and potent. Cancer represents the mass form, the collective animal soul. Capricorn represents the group, the universal soul. Cancer was originally called the birth month of Jesus. Capricorn is, as we know, the birth month of the Christ, and on the 25th of December, down the centuries, the birth of the world savior has been celebrated. But in very ancient days, the birth of the infant sun god was in Cancer, we are told. The birthday of the infant Jesus, being arbitrarily set by the priests, produces a serious discrepancy, as we are told he was born in a manger. The manger is found in the sign of the summer solstice, the constellation Cancer, which was called the gate of the sun, through which souls were said to descend from their heavenly home to earth. Just as at the winter solstice in December, they were said to return to their heavenly or celestial home, the constellation Capricorn, the other gate of the sun. Capricorn was the sign from which sun gods were said to be born at the winter solstice and made sacred to the sons of light. And that's from The Celestial Ship of the North, Volume 2, page 205, by E. Valencia Straiton, or Straiton. It's Straiton. Ooh, wow. Oh, wow. And his name is Seth. That's cool. Fascinating. Numbers. Symbols. The astrological symbol for the sign Cancer has no relation at all to the crab. It is composed of two asses' tails, and these again link up to the gospel story with the story of the manger. In connection with the birth of Jesus, two asses appear, and one on which the Virgin rode down to Bethlehem prior to the birth, and the other on which she rode to Egypt after the birth. Close to the sign Cancer are two bright stars, one called Asellus Borealis, and the northern ass, or the northern, it's called Asellus Borealis, or the northern ass, and the other Asellus Australis, or the southern ass. There is also the third time when Christ rode into Jerusalem during his brief moment of triumph on Palm Sunday, seated on the back of an ass, a symbol of patience and humility, the crown jewels of greatness. So do not decree this symbol. Someone has used the following words to express the cadence of Cancer when first entered. A sorrowful little voice underground, a low, half-captured, half-evasive melody. Not yet has the work been consummated. All that is to be heard is the note of possible achievement. All that is to be found is a deep inner urge and discontent which gradually becomes so strong that it lifts the hidden, struggling individual out of his environment of stabilized world condition and makes him the earnest aspirant who knows no rest until he has emerged out of the water and climbs steadily on until he finds himself on the summit of the Mount of Capricorn, the birth not the consummation of the world's Savior. Christ was born in Capricorn, fulfilled the law under Saturn, initiated the era of intelligent brotherhood under Venus, and is the perfect example of the Capricorn initiate who becomes the world server in Aquarius and the world's savior in Pisces. Cancer admits the soul into the world center, which we call humanity. Capricorn admits the soul into the conscious participation in the life of that world center, which we call the hierarchy. Ooh, and that's from Esoteric Astrology, page 168. The three symbolic constellations. Jesus is often called the Good Shepherd, and he has been depicted many times as the shepherd leading his sheep. The thought of the shepherd has been closely associated in the minds of people with Christ. Connected with the sign Cancer are three constellations: Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, and Argo. The common Occidental names for the two former are the Great Bear and the Little Bear, but it is one of the mysteries of astronomy as to how the name Bear came to be associated with either of these groups of stars. For in Chaldean, Persian, for in the Chaldean, Persian, Indian, and Egyptian zodiacs, no bear is found. The names most commonly used are those of the sheepfold or the flock of sheep. I'm just getting some crazy tinnitus right now. So this is important, right? Well, I guess it always is. The bear. Okay, I'll look into the bear some more. Okay, it's gone. The names most commonly used are those of the sheepfold or the flock of sheep. And an analysis of the Hebrew and Arabic names for the stars found in these constellations will be found to prove the fact that the ancient names signify the lesser flock, the sheepfold, the sheep, and the ship. Ooh. Words! In the 34th chapter of Ezekiel and in the 10th chapter of St. John is much that has reference to these constellations. Did I say that right? Constellations. Ursa Minor is famous because the brightest star in it is the pole star, the North Star. In the symbolism of these two constellations, we have held before us the thought of the mass or group, which is the significant influence of the work carried forward in the sign Cancer. And in the symbolism of the North Star, we have the thought of a lodestar, a magnetic attraction, which guides the pilgrim back home. Ooh. Many esotericists hold the belief that the human family, the fourth kingdom in nature, gradually came into being during the 2,000 years, approximately, when our sun was in Cancer. The thought of a mass of animals, of set boundaries within which these sheep or animals were confined, and the thought of a magnetic center of attraction are symbolically portrayed for us also in the Masonic tradition. In Kircher's Egyptian planisphere, Argo is represented by two galleys, as we have two sheepfolds, whose prows are surmounted by ram's heads, and the stern of one of them ends in a fish's tail. Note, therefore, how we have here held pictorially in front of us the consummation in Capricorn, wherein the goat scales the mountaintop. The goat scales the mountaintop. We also have the portrayal of that greater cycle, which includes the progress of the soul from Cancer to Capricorn, but which begins in Aries, the ram, and ends in Pisces, the fishes. A close analysis of the symbolism of the zodiacal signs deepens in one the strong conviction of the eternal picturing of truth and the constant holding before our eyes of the story of the evolution of matter and form, of consciousness, of spirit, and of life. Wow. Yeah, I like this book too, gamer. It's so cool. Argo stretches all the way from Cancer to Capricorn and is one of the largest of the constellations. It has in it 64 stars, of which the brightest is Canopus. Canopus? Canopus? Its symbolism, therefore, covers the life of the aspirant from the time he takes incarnation until he has reached his goal. We use the word ship quite frequently in the symbolic sense, speaking of the ship of state, the ship of salvation, and conveying ever the idea of security, of progress, and of the achieving of a way out, of the making of a journey, and of the carrying of a vast crowd of pilgrims in search of golden treasure or a new and freer home. The pilgrims were equipped with instinct, and as they passed through the various constellations covered by this immense sign, that instinct demonstrates as intellect in a human being as he develops self consciousness and emerges from out the purely animal stage until the time comes when, having progressed around and around the zodiac, the aspirant finds himself again in Cancer, faced with the problem of finding that elusive, sensitive, and deeply occult or hidden spiritual intuition which will guide him in his now lonely journey. The aspirant is no longer identified and lost in the mass. He is no longer one of the sheep, safely guarded in the sheepfold. He is no longer one of the great herd of immigrants, but he has emerged out of the mass and has started on the lonely way of all disciples. When he treads the path of tribulation, of test and trial, wrestling by himself as an individual from Leo to Capricorn, until the time comes when, with the aid of instinct, intellect, and intuition, and driven by the urge of the Christ life, he again merges himself with the mass and becomes identified with the group. He then becomes the world server in Aquarius and has no sense of separateness. Rose, you're funny. Okay. The lesson of the labor. We have seen that the hind or doe, for which Hercules sought, was sacred to Artemis, the moon, but was also claimed by Diana, the huntress of the heavens, and by Apollo, the sun god. One of the things that is often forgotten by students of psychology and those who probe the unfolding consciousness of man is the fact that there are no sharp distinctions between the various aspects of man's nature, but that all are phases of one reality. The words instinct, intellect, and intuition are but varying aspects of consciousness and of response to environment and to the world in which the human being finds himself. Man is an animal, and in company with the animal, he possesses the quality of instinct and of instinctual response to his environment. Instinct is the consciousness of the form and of the cell life, the mode of awareness of the form, and therefore Artemis, the moon, who rules over the form, claims the sacred hind. In its own place, animal instinct is as divine as those other qualities which we regard as more strictly spiritual. But man is also a human being. He is rational. He can analyze, criticize, and he possesses that something which we call the mind. And that faculty of intellectual perception and response, which differentiates him from the animal, which opens up to him the new field of awarenesses. What's going on out there? Oh, this is like crazy weather or something. Yep, I have no idea. Okay, where am I? Okay. Sorry about that. Which differentiates him from the animal, which opens up to him a new field of awareness, but which is nevertheless simply an extension of his response apparatus and the development of the instinct to intellect. Through the one, he becomes aware of the world of physical contacts and of emotional conditions. Through the other, he becomes aware of the world of thought and of ideas, and thus is a human being. When he has reached that stage of intelligent and instinctual awareness, then Eurystheus indicates to him that there is another world of which he can become equally aware, but which has its own method of conduct and its own response apparatus. Urgh. Diana, the huntress, claimed the doe, because to her the doe is the intellect and man is the great seeker, the great hunter before the Lord. But the doe had another and more elusive form, and for this Hercules, the aspirant, sought. For a life cycle, we are told, the hunted. It was not the doe, the instinct, for which he looked. It was not the doe, the intellect, that was the object of his search. It was something else, and for this he spent a life cycle hunting. Finally, we read, he captured it and carried it into the temple, where it was claimed by the sun god, who in the doe recognized the spiritual intuition, that extension of consciousness, that highly developed sense of awareness, which gives to the disciple a vision of new fields of contact, and opens up for him a new world of being. We are told that the battle is still going on between Apollo, the sun god, who knew that the doe was the intuition, Diana, the huntress of the heavens, who knew it was intellect, and Artemis, the moon, who thought that it was only instinct. Both goddess claimants have a point, and the problem of all disciples is to use the instinct correctly, in the right place, and in its proper way. He must learn to use the intellect under the influence of Diana, the huntress, daughter of the sun, and through it become en rapport with the world of human ideas and research. He must learn to carry that capacity of his into the temple of the Lord, and there too see it transmuted into intuition, and through the intuition become aware of the things of spirit and of those spiritual realities which neither instinct nor intellect can reveal to him. And again, the sons of men, who are also the sons of God, must recapture these spiritual realities upon the endless way. Dang, right? So that, I love this book. I guess I love most books. Even the ones that are like not that great, I'm like, yeah. So that's where we're going to call it today, everyone. I appreciate your company and your attention. And isn't that the most precious thing that we have, our attention? Thank you so much. I do appreciate you. And we're going to continue on. I'll probably be back tomorrow. We'll see what shakes if I don't lose my voice tonight at the show. It's going to be fun, though. I think there's going to be a lot of people there. So, yeah, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'm sure we'll meet back here very soon. Thank you so much. And yeah, until then, mwah, peace.